Welcome to the Dan Sports Tips preview show for the NFL Week 4 and the NCAA games on this weekend. We've obviously not started particularly strongly on either college or the NFL this year. I'm confident that college will turn around as the ratings improve as we get through the season. We've got more information to go on. The NFL, we've fallen into the trap a couple of times, and we're going to fall into it again this week, as you'll see. But you know, we're currently just under 20 points down on the year. I'm here today because we've got a tip in tonight's game, Miami and Cincinnati. It is the theatre of a Thursday night football game, arguably the worst football programme of the week. It's the antithesis of Sunday night football, with the quality of product, with both teams playing on a short week and the commentary team of Nance and Sims. And this week they give us the Bengals and the Dolphins as well. It's hard to be particularly interested or passionate about the game. I think the line of Bengals are about 7-point favourites, seems somewhere around the right area. There's no doubt they've got the more talented roster. I do, however, think that there is a slight error on pricing up receiving yards for Ryan Tannehill's favourite target, Jarvis Landry. This line's too low. I suspect that Miami may be in catch-up mode late in the game. The Dolphins have got no running game with the absence of Arian Foster. They will use Landry a lot. I would therefore imagine a line of 76.5 yards for a receiver who has topped 100 in each of the last two games is going to be under what he's going to get today. So I will play Jarvis Landry over 76.5 receiving yards for the Miami Dolphins in Thursday night football against the Cincinnati Bengals. Speaking of falling into that trap, the Detroit Lions are visiting the Chicago Bears. I swore myself off-road favourites after last week because we've bet on 3 and none of them have covered. But I can't not do this. Chicago have been playing awful, particularly at Soldier Field under John Fox. They've won only once, I believe it is, at home under the current head coach. They've lost 6 straight games in the series against the Detroit Lions. The head coach the last time the Chicago Bears beat the Detroit Lions was Lovie Smith. When you factor in that Detroit arguably could be 3-0 bar a silly loss at home to the Tennessee Titans in a game they both could and should have won and looked very good last week, along with the decimation of Chicago's defence due to injury, this looks an uphill road for the Bears. And while I know I should shy away from a road favourite, I'm not going to. I'm going to play Detroit minus 3 points against the Chicago Bears at Soldier Field on Sunday. The San Francisco 49ers will be hosting the Dallas Cowboys. I know the Niners aren't a great team. You know the Niners aren't a great team. Surely Blaine Gabbert's days under centre are numbered. The Cowboys are travelling on the road, however, without their 2 best offensive players, I believe, because everything you read suggests Des Bryant is not going to play, and Tony Romo is obviously still out with the back injury as well. Say what you want about Dallas's win on Sunday night against Chicago, but the Bears are a bad football team. This team in Dallas has developed a habit of failing to win games they should have done at the early point of the season. Prescott's been solid but unspectacular. Elliott feasted on a weakened but atrocious Bears defensive unit on Sunday. The Niners defence is actually better than a lot of people think, and the Cowboys have lost 6 straight games when they've not had Romo and Bryant starting. I like the Niners to get it done at home in this spot. Give me the points. I'll take the San Francisco 49ers plus 2 against the Dallas Cowboys. I would have played the Baltimore Ravens at minus 3 as well, with the Raiders travelling cross-country for an early game for the 3rd time in the first 4 weeks of this season, despite the fact that they've won the first 2. But with the line being at 3.5, I'm going to pass on that game. The other game is Monday Night Football. The New York Giants travelling to the Minnesota Vikings. We know the Vikings defence, constructed by Mike Zimmer, is an excellent unit, as you would expect from an outstanding defensive coach. The offense is down their starting quarterback, starting left tackle and starting running back, and they've got the job done so far to a degree, but it's a little bit of a mirage because they've got the job done mainly on defense rather than offense. The Giants are without their top 2 running backs on the depth chart in Jennings and Vereen, so I assume we're going to be starting Orleans Darkwa. I'm not convinced by the Giants' rushing attack when healthy in any case, but if they win, they're going to do so through Eli Manning to the likes of Odell Beckham, Sterling Shepard and the resurgent Victor Cruz at wide receiver. As I said, the Vikings are 3-0 despite having very poor offensive numbers. Offensively, they've scored the 2nd least points in the NFL this year. A lot of their points have come from defensive touchdowns. They have scored a lot of those. They forced an incredible amount of turnovers at an unsustainable rate to this point in the season as well. Both of them in the long term have to regress to the mean at some point. And while we know the Giants can turn the ball over with Eli at quarterback, They are a team capable of scoring too many points for Sam Bradford and Stephon Diggs to keep up. The Giants have got excellent corners, as have the Vikings. They have a solid pass rush with Olivier Vernon and Jason Pierre-Paul. Run stuffing tackle in Damon Harrison as well. The Vikings will need to get it done over the middle of the field and go to probably Kyle Rudolph, the tight end, early and often if they're to move the ball consistently. I just think that the regression is going to start in this game. I think 5 points is too many. It's not going to be. I can't see Minnesota blowing out the New York Giants. So I'm going to take the points, a generous 5 points, I think, and take the New York Giants +5 on the road in Minnesota on Monday Night Football. College football. For those of you that haven't watched the show before, I have some ratings that I use and apply. They throw up, for me, where the lines and totals are incorrect, or in my opinion, on college football. As I say, the more data I get, generally the more accurate we get. We haven't gone very well to this point in the season. There are quite a few plays this week, starting tomorrow night, Friday night. I don't know which night you're all watching this, obviously, but Washington -3.5 against Stanford. We know that funky things can happen. I mean, I think Stanford are probably overall a slightly better team, but I'm going to take the home side, giving -3.5 points here as well, because funky things happen, particularly when Stanford play on Thursday and Friday nights. I'm going to take Washington -3.5 to beat the Stanford Cardinal. Oklahoma State against Texas. Texas have obviously been playing more up-tempo this year. That's been reflected in points in their games. I think now that the adjustment's been made, it's gone too far. 71.5 is a touch high for me. I'm going to play under 71.5 points in the Oklahoma State-Texas game. Miami against Georgia Tech. Miami are just over a touchdown favourite. To be honest, when I first put these together, I did. It was Miami -7, so I had to drop the stake by a point. But Miami -7.5 to beat Georgia Tech, and I also like that total to go under 53 points in the game. In one of the big games of the week, Michigan against Wisconsin. I'm going to take the Wolverines at home to beat Wisconsin. Yes, they're very good defensively, Wisconsin, but Michigan just score and score and score, it seems, at the moment. And I think Wisconsin will probably get some points as well. I'm going to take the -10 on Michigan. It was 10.5. I wasn't very keen at that line, but at 10 I will play. And I'm going to play over 44.5 points in that game. North Carolina against Florida State. Florida State, the wheels have come off their season somewhat now with the shellacking at the hands of Louisville a couple of weeks ago. North Carolina getting 11-point start, I think, is too many points for Florida State to be. So I'm going to give North Carolina +11 to beat Florida State. I'm also going to play over 69.5 total points in this game, because it looks like a track meet, because North Carolina don't stop an awful lot either. Tennessee against Georgia, two bad teams. But I do think Georgia is substantially worse than Tennessee. I will take Tennessee -3.5 points to beat Georgia. Don't really like either team offensively. They find ways to screw it up. So I'll play under 52.5 points in that game as well. TCU getting over a field goal against Oklahoma. I will play them +3.5 points, and I will play under 69.5 points in that game. The big game of the weekend, Clemson against Louisville. Very strong opinion on the numbers on this one. I'm going to play Clemson +2 to beat Louisville. I'm going to take Clemson on the money line to beat Louisville, and I'm going to take under 67.5 points as well. I think this is the game where the Lamar Jackson train might hit the buffers a little bit, and we'll see what happens, but I fancy Clemson to get the job done. Arizona State against USC. USC have been pretty awful this year. I don't think they should be giving 10 points to pretty much anybody, to be honest. So give me Arizona State +10 to beat SC. Navy against Air Force. 7.5 points I think is too many for Air Force to be giving as well. So I'll take Navy +7.5 and over 47.5 points in the game. I'll take Purdue +10.5 to beat Maryland. I will also throw a point at Purdue to win this game outright, what I think is too big a price, and I'll take over 56 points in the game as well. Kansas State, one of my favourite plays this week. I will play them +3 to beat West Virginia. Kansas State always beat West Virginia. I think they've 5 of the last 6. I think it is they've won. I do think that the total's too high as well. I'll go under 54 points in the game, and I will have a little play on Kansas State on the money line as well as an underdog, because I think they shouldn't be. Western Michigan -3.5 against Central Michigan. I will be playing that game. I think Western Michigan are a superior outfit and can cover the line. I'd rather had 3, if I'm honest. It would have been a much bigger stake if it had been 3, but at 3.5 I'm still willing to play. Florida against Vanderbilt, don't think it will be a particularly high scoring game. Not sure I can see Vanderbilt getting in the end zone. 10 points. I'll play Florida -10 to beat Vandy, and I'm going to play obviously because a low total in the game because I don't see Vandy scoring many. Under 40.5 is the line. It is a low line, but I will be playing that. Indiana +6.5 to beat Michigan State. Don't know how Michigan State are going to rebound from last week against Wisconsin. Again, this line's moved from 7 to 6.5 while I was looking at it, so I'm going to play the 6.5. I would have much preferred 7, but we'll take Indiana +6.5 to beat Michigan State. Washington State +1.5 to beat Oregon. Shouldn't be the underdog in the game. Happy to play Washington State, getting points at home in this game all day long. Mississippi -14.5 to completely outclass Memphis, which they will do. It's just whether or not they can cover the line with the hook. I think they can. Would have been a much higher stake at 13.5, but 14.5 will try a couple of points at Mississippi. I'm also going to play under 68.5 total points in that game. East Carolina -3.5 against Central Florida. -3.5, as I say. I think East Carolina score points for fun. There's not many teams can stop them. UCF are pretty rancid defensively, can score points as well, but I just fancy East Carolina to win this in a shootout, so I will take the over 61 total points in that game as well. Penn State against Minnesota, I don't think this line's correct. Again, I'll take Penn State only for a small stake to beat Minnesota because I don't really trust Penn State either, but I think they're the better side against Minnesota, and I will play under 56.5 total points in the game. The accumulator this week, I tried not to do more than 5 teams, but to be honest, there were 6 plays I really liked. Couldn't really narrow them down, so the accumulator this week is Kansas State +3, Clemson +2, Washington State +1.5, East Carolina against Central Florida to go over 61 total points, Indiana +6.5, and Western Michigan -3.5. 2 points on that will return 99.32 at Bet365. Please do not forget to like this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel either. I will be here every week throughout the NFL and college football season. I will be providing betting tips. I will be providing daily fantasy analysis as well. Check back later on in the week for the DFS video for the NFL. Thanks for watching the show. Best of luck if you're having a play. I'll see you next week.